Good morning to all participants from the Netherlands and selamat siang buat semua peserta dari Indonesia. My name is Rizal Sebastian and I'm the moderator of our panel discussion today with a theme that is very actual for us, how to make our cities sustainable in climate change. I represent the Hague University of Applied Sciences, where I work as a professor and chair of the research group Future Urban Systems. And I also serve as senior advisor to the Dutch government on digitalisation for sustainable built environment. At this moment, I'm in Jakarta. I'm sitting at the Dutch embassy, and I'm hosting this session with help from colleagues from the Nuffic Neso Southeast Asia. So thanks for that. First slide, please. Next slide, yes. The Hague University of Applied Sciences is a public university located in The Hague and the surroundings. We provide education as bachelor, master level, as well as vocational lifelong learning, and since recently also professional doctorate. Next slide. The overarching theme of today's session is about sustainability. And as a professor, I'm part of the Center of Expertise, which is called Mission Zero, where sustainability is our main mission. Together with my colleague professors, we perform applied research by combining with technical and social knowledge domains. Next slide. Today, we are very honored to have many excellent panelists in our session. Just please allow me just to introduce them briefly one by one. And I'll start with my colleague, Dr. Sylvia I. Berg, who is a senior researcher at the Hague University and an associate professor at Erasmus University. Next, another colleague from the Hague University, Jacqueline van Marle, who is the head of our global strategy and community hub. We also have a panelist who represents the government executive agency of the Netherlands. Warm welcome to you, Yvonne Acampo, the program advisor for climate and energy response facility at RVO. And it's a great honor to welcome architect Georgios Budi Yulianto. And he asked me to call him Pak Bugar. Pak Bugar is the president of the Indonesian Institute of Architects. The next panelist is very important since he fulfills a key role at the provincial government. And for me personally, it's a great feeling to reconnect with Mr. Andika Aji, who was my fellow student at the Faculty of Architecture at Institut Teknologi Bandung, and is currently the head of Research and Innovation Center at DKI Jakarta Province. Last but certainly not least, I'm glad to introduce Dr. Kai Otsuki from Utrecht University, who is the principal scientist of a research project on Ibu Kota Nusantara, the designated new capital of Indonesia. I told you, with such an excellent panel, I dare to guarantee that our session will be very interesting. So please stay tuned for the next hour. Next slide, please. Before we invite our panelists to share their ideas, please allow me just to summarize the context of our discussion. We will touch on the issues of climate change mitigation, climate adaptation and resilience, and climate neutrality and energy transition. Next. The reason that all of us in this session today, I'm sure because we are interested in our sustainability goal to create sustainable cities and communities, which is one of the SDGs from the United Nations. But in fact, we are not there yet. We are still confronted with varying reality and challenges. You know, I'm in Jakarta at the moment, and outside the air pollution level is quite high, and this is a huge daily problem. And along with that, the emissions of greenhouse gases that cause the global warming, and of course, buildings in our cities which consume a significant amount of our total energy. Next. And the situation is only getting worse. Yes, it's a pity, but that's the fact. This week in Jakarta, outside is hotter than usual because we are suffering from a heat wave. And for the whole world, this year actually has been marked as the hottest year in our modern history. Next. The heat stress problem is very real in cities. A concentration of buildings, infrastructure, and people. And on the screen, you can see the image of the heat map of The Hague. And of course, underneath, you can see for Jakarta, where the color is almost dark red everywhere, indicating high temperatures. So we really need to take measures for climate adaptation, and we have to do that urgently. We need to improve the resilience of both the society and our built environment against heat stress and other climate risks. Next. But adaptation alone is not enough. We have to go a step further to mitigate the cause of climate change. And therefore, we have to reduce or prevent greenhouse gas emissions and move towards climate neutral cities. In doing so, we need to make a transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy sources. And it will help if we can adopt also new technologies such as digitalisation. Next. With this high urgency in mind, let's proceed with our panel discussions on the following four topics. First and foremost, we'll put our attention to the society, especially the vulnerable people living in cities in the middle of the climate change. Then, we set our vision for smart and just energy transition in the longer term. And parallel with the energy transition, we will discuss what we can do in short term on climate adaptation for our buildings and urban spaces. And a close collaboration between the Netherlands and Indonesia in our strive towards sustainability is the heart of this conference. So together, we will look at this global challenge and we will look at the new Living Lab program and the ongoing research projects between two countries. Next. Without further ado, I'd like to give the online stage to my colleague, Dr. Sylvia Berg. And after the pitch of Sylvia, we will continue with a short panel discussion with Dr. Kei Otsuki and Mr. Andika Aji. Sylvia, please take us through your research and just give a sign when you want to move to the next slide. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rizal, for this introduction, and thank you for inviting me to be on this panel, and thanks for the organizer for a very smooth organization. And yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a recent research project with you. Let's go to the next one, next slide. It was an applied research project which actually looked at the effect of heat waves on urban heat waves on vulnerable populations in The Hague. And in The Hague, these are defined as senior citizens because we have a high share of older population in Europe generally, and also in The Hague, who are increasingly alone, living alone in single households, and yeah, are vulnerable to the heat. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. And I don't think I need to go much into this. This is just showing how bad the situation is, but Vishal already explained this, and we just got the scenarios for the next 50 years from our meteorological service here in the Netherlands, and it's looking pretty bad. 50 degrees will be probably becoming standard in urban environments in a not so distant future. So we better prepare. So let's see. Go to the next slide, please. Also, in The Hague, as I said, you probably think of it as the city of peace and justice, the Peace Palace, but it's also, it can get a very hot city. Next slide, please. And yeah, we wanted to find out who are these vulnerable populations, what are the characteristics exactly, what are their needs in order to be able to cope. Are there some existing solutions that people are using or that might be available on the market? And also, what is the role here of the municipality in increasing urban resilience with regards to heat? Next slide, please. So yeah, on the needs, and I think this is probably typical for many contexts, is that people don't necessarily think that they are vulnerable, and I will maybe briefly explain why senior citizens are vulnerable, because first of all, when you get older, you don't get the thirst impulse so much, so you don't realize that you should be drinking more water, so you're dehydrating faster, and yeah, your heart has to work really hard to pump to make sure that the heat is being yeah, goes away from your body, and so yeah, there are obviously heat strokes and other things that can happen, and also, yeah, there are every week when it's 1 degree higher than usual or above, yeah, then 30 people die in the Netherlands. So it's really a serious problem, but not just mortality is a problem, but also, of course, limit decreased productivity, and I think we all know it ourselves. We are less able to sleep well, and therefore we have trouble focusing on our work or doing work in general. So that's sort of why people are vulnerable, and they some don't usually think that they are vulnerable. So it's a challenge also from a health communication perspective. How do you communicate with people who don't think that they need to be listening to any messages? They also have knowledge, but they don't often actually apply it. Like, it's important to give your body a rest, and maybe, deliberately go somewhere cool for maybe 2 or 3 hours per day, just to give your body a rest. So you could go to the cinema, or you could go to the supermarket, or anywhere where there's air conditioning. People don't usually do that. They prefer, of course, to stay at home where if they don't have air conditioning, then that's yeah, a problem. In the Netherlands, we also have apartments that have a lot of windows, and we like to have the sun. So, but then it gets really hot, and people don't have sunscreens, and they're sometimes not allowed to put them either, when they live in rental or in social housing. And but people are concerned about the cost of cooling, and they would prefer such sunshades or sunscreens or air conditioning or green roof, but the costs are making it unavailable for them. Next slide, please. So we did find some interesting solutions. They can be called frugal innovations, and we worked here with the Center on Frugal Innovations, based at the International Institute of Social Studies, to see what is out there. And we found, for example, these mobile sunscreens, which you can also put on a balcony and remove again, so you don't get into trouble with your landlord. Next slide, please. Um, and of course, there are things also on the market, or things you can, yeah, other things like window foils at the bottom. You can hardly see them, but they reflect the sun. And then there are misting systems, which are used by restaurants sometimes, and leisure parks. You probably have seen them, and why not use them also for outdoor, yeah, on your balcony, on your terrace, or even in a small courtyard where people can go to cool down, at least for some time. And then, of course, we also have, well, we have other products, these cooling scarves, which was an invention, a competition that was launched by the province of South Holland, and this was the winning design. And you also can now buy them. I saw them being sold on the internet for people who do lots of sports. So these are ventilations, also that either they're cooling elements in them, the scarves, or they have sort of really electrical devices in them, which where the cool air is coming out and keeping you cold. And then we have cooling centers, which, yeah, need to be put in place by municipalities or other actors, and that's, of course, more of a challenge to organize, and people have to be brought there. And we've seen this being used in North America, quite a lot in Oregon, where it was so hot, and people had to really be evacuated. And we might get to this position also here in Netherlands. So, but we're not yet there. Now we're thinking that we might actually have to evacuate people. So next slide, please. And I was specifically interested in the governance aspects of this. How do you, yeah, communicate with people? Can we use the informal networks around seniors? These can be home care. They can also be, neighborhood centers where people go to meet others, to have lunch. And there we could have maybe more sessions. Awareness raising sessions could be done. The Red Cross has indeed done some of these, like, playing bingo about heat, having a quiz about heat, or so in a yeah, serious gaming way. That could be a way to do it. Could also be people calling each other, like, are you okay? Checking on each other. But yeah, in general, we found that there's a fragmentation in terms of who's doing what, between all these different actors. The municipal health services have been put in charge, but yeah, they need to coordinate with a lot of actors, and they might not have the resources to really do that. Let's continue to the next slide. Because I think that's the main message, is that actually we need local heat plans, and The Hague does have one where agreements have been made and are transparent about who does what. When is the activation phase of the heat plan according to the weather forecast, and who then has to do what, to get in touch with relevant organizations, to for example, senior care homes, other places, mobilize or make sure that these school spaces like libraries, churches, and other places are actually open and have, are staffed during the time. Transport has been organized, all these things, and so we need a problem owner that can cover or bridge these three policy areas. It's not just about health; it's also about the buildings need to be adapted, and it's about obviously the public space. And I believe we have a presentation later on in this panel about that. So I think I'm a big fan of having local heat plants, and I'm a bit disappointed that we don't have more. We now have 50 in the Netherlands, 15 municipalities, but there are of course many more that don't have one. So I think that would be the priority from a policy perspective. Let's continue. I'm not quite sure how I'm doing with time. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just to say that we produced a report and also some blog posts on this. We also looked a little bit into the role of the EU, and we found that it's not really playing a big role because it's considered heat waves are considered a health issue. And as we know, health is considered a national sovereignty domain. So this is a bit unfortunate because I think within the EU, people could learn from each other. And also we have national heat plans as well, and they could be coordinated, or we could learn from best practices. Right, let's go maybe quickly, if possible. Next slide. Just to say, yeah, we also contributed to the European Climate and Health Observatory with our case study. And then also just to make the bridge to more globally, what is done elsewhere. And of course, the fact that in south of Spain people have painted their houses white is of course not a coincidence, simply because it reflects the light better. And so now in India, there was, there's stories about people also painting their corrugated steel roofs in informal settlements also white to make it more bearable for them. So these are of course simple things, but yeah, still you need to have the resources to do it. Next slide, please. And I'm not quite sure how I'm doing for time, but I'll be quick on this. I just wanted to move to the Middle East, North Africa region because that's a region I actually know quite well from my previous research as well, and that's also the region that will heat up. Was one of the highest in the world, and we also thought, well, they've had experience with heat, so what can you learn from this region? Next slide, please. And of course, we also have to enlarge a little bit our definition of who is vulnerable, because in developing countries in general, there are also a lot of people working outdoors, maybe more than in developed countries, where we can sort of retreat to our air-conditioned offices. Most of us, of course not all. We also have construction workers; they also need to be protected, but we don't have that many street vendors, etc., and maybe less homeless people. And we also don't have refugees, or not that many. Well, we do have them, but that is actually an issue. I must correct myself. This is an issue also in the Netherlands for refugees and asylum seekers, and where they should be housed, and that they don't have to sleep outdoors, which unfortunately is happening. So, but we also have camps in some of these countries in the Middle East, with refugee camps, which people living in tents and no air conditioning. Next slide, please. So I will not go through all these points, but I looked a little bit into the policy and the governance framework here, and I found that it's really quite problematic in the sense that there are no really no coherent norms across the region. City planning and management regimes are disconnected from disaster risk and resilience building. We don't really have legislation, overlapping mandates, and even the data in terms of heat warnings, etc., can be an issue. So we need much more improved coordination between these different governance levels. Also in the Netherlands, by the way, between the national and the local level. And this is a picture of Dubai, and you can see there's hardly, if any, any green space. Next slide, please. But even here in the MENA region, we have traditional adaptations, which I think we can make more use of. On the top right, you see a wind catcher used in the Gulf and Iran, which brings the cool air down into the house and also cools it further with an underground. In some places, you have also underground canals with water, so it's really an air conditioning, but then in a traditional sense. And also, we have these screens, which can be very beautiful. Also to filter the light. And then there's Mostar City, which is an interesting case study in the UAE of a new city that has been built to be climate neutral and use some of these traditional ways of building medinas and old cities in the region, which are much cooler than the modern cities with their big boulevards and much more urban heat island effects. Right, the next slide, and I think I'm almost at the end. Yes, that's it. So I hope that it was useful for you to see a little bit what's happening in the Netherlands and also consider the challenges in the Middle East, North Africa region. And this last slide is really just sort of an expression of my own frustration because when I go shopping here, the vegetables have misting systems to make them stay fresh longer and to sell them at a higher price, I assume. And why can't we do this for humans in the summer? Why do we privilege actually the consumption or these kind of products rather than also thinking how can we use the same technology but then to protect our health? Anyway, that's my little plaidoyer for more attention to this issue, and thank you so much for giving me the space.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. You have opened our minds and then raised our awareness for the health and social aspects of climate change. So now on the stage, we have Dr. Kei Otsuki and Mr. Andika Aji. Angela, could you please also put the slide on screen? Yes, there you go. Okay. I know you conduct research in sociology in relation with sustainability and development. Could you share your perspective with us after hearing the some examples and also some recommendations from Sylvia? And Angela, could you please keep Sylvia on the stage,
Yeah.
please? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. It was very interesting to hear your project. Well, so I will be very quick, but the thing that it came to my mind was this concept of intersectionality. That is, for example, you focus on aging people or you focus on some workers. Well, whatever context that you focus on one group who are vulnerable, but actually, vulnerability is a very complex thing. So, for example, among aged people, there are rich aged people, maybe very poor aged people who cannot afford some of the products that can be very useful for them. So, indeed, the governance wise, what kind of support or what kind of possibility for maybe in the Netherlands, mainly for affordability of those services, how to keep it and how to make it widely available beyond certain groups of people. And I find also this learning from the global south experiences in the global north, it kind of, we tend to think that we have to export all the technologies to the other parts of the world from the Netherlands, but actually the other way around is very important. And that also comes to my mind, that indeed what kind of groups of people that in the north actually can be reached through the kind of knowledge that we have it in the south. So I thought it was pretty interesting to hear maybe about your thoughts about this, like a kind of how to make these findings a little bit wider, perhaps beyond certain groups of people.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much, Kay. Two very important points I've taken a note. One is cross learning and cross application between different groups of a community. And secondly, you mentioned about cross learning between North and South. What we can learn from each other is not knowledge transfer that we are looking to do at this moment, but really strengthening and integrating our knowledge. And it brings me actually back to the time when Aji and I studied together at ITB in the Faculty of Architecture. Of course, I learned about tropical architecture. Now I live in the Netherlands, and a lot of this knowledge can be applied to the Netherlands for buildings and cities looking into the perspective of climate change. But Aji, nice to have the time to discuss again with you many years after we studied together. From your current role, could you inform us about the support from local government to vulnerable people in climate change? We heard Sylvia mention a couple of times about the importance of having local heat plants. What are the initiatives in Jakarta?
Okay. If we are talking about the social protection, actually Indonesia right now is still in final stage of developing the adaptive social protection or ASP program that provide the comprehensive protection against the risk arising from climate related disaster. That's one thing. And but in terms of local government initiative, I think there's so many initiative that launched by Jakarta province government. For example, is like we have the green building codes, for example, to be implemented in the every building in Jakarta, and also the cooling roof initiative that to and also the energy transition right now in many official government offices we are using the solar panel to try to reduce the impact of the climate changes. Uh, that's our supporting system from the local government, I
Thank you
think.
very much, Aji. I'm sure that we will hear more about that design solutions when Pak Bukar will share a presentation. But very interesting discussion topic. This is just the first discussion topic. We have four. So let us now move forward with the next discussion topic. Thank you to all panelists and thank you to you, Sylvia, for a very interesting pitch. Next slide, please. Can I now invite my colleague from RVO, Ivone Acampo, on the stage. There you go, Ivone. And after a short pitch from you, we will continue with the panel discussion involving Jacqueline van Marle and Pak Bukar. But now the floor is yours, Ivone, please.
Thank you very much, Rizal, for the invitation in this panel. Nice to collaborate here. We are also colleagues, as you are also affiliated with the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. So my name is Ivone Acampo. I work for the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, and in particular for the international department, and I'm advisor for a program called the Climate Energy Response Facility, which I can will tell more about. So please to the next slide. Yeah, let me see. Yeah. Thank you very much. So the Climate Energy Response Facility, it's a program commissioned by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, and it's executed by RVO, so the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. And the objective of this program is to achieve long-term impact on climate change mitigation. That's the focus, but also adaptation can be addressed by helping realize and raise the climate ambitions in our partner countries. So there is a list of partner countries that we collaborate on this matter, and one of these countries is Indonesia. So I'm the advisor for Indonesia, and you should see this program actually in the framework of the Paris Agreement for climate goals, where we all promise to collaborate with countries and to help other countries. And this is actually the facility of the Netherlands to actually do so. So please do the next slide. Yeah, and we do this because raising the climate ambitions and accelerating that we achieve these ambitions is urgent and important for all of us. Climate is not restricted to country borders. And if we solve only our own climate issues, we actually haven't solved it at all. So we need to collaborate in this. So this program is a tool for the embassies of the Netherlands in our partner countries to follow up on the climate diplomacy and opportunities for collaboration. And we intend to work on long-term transition paths followed by a programmatic approach. So we want to really work on a system change in the long term and not just focus on one aspect of it. At the same time, we cannot cover everything with our program, so we collaborate a lot with partners to reach this transition. To the next slide, please. So for SERF, which is the shortcut of this program in Indonesia, what are we doing there then actually? So we established, together of course with the embassy of the Netherlands in Indonesia, which is in the lead of the program, and we support them. And we've established an intensive collaboration with the Indonesian Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. A memorandum of understanding has been signed with our Minister Rob Jette to enforce this collaboration. And what this means is there is regular joint working groups where we agree on actions where we will collaborate. It is also important to share there is the Joint Energy Transition Partnership, so the JETP, which is a partnership wider than like a global partnership where Indonesia with the large actors in the world, so like the US, but also European Union, and indirectly that's the Netherlands, so we are a partner in there as well, to support Indonesia in reaching their goals. So that's another framework next to the Memorandum of Understanding on which we collaborate. What we do is we try to connect financial actors to mobilize climate investments. So that sounds a bit abstract, perhaps. Very concretely, at this moment, there is an event ongoing in Jakarta, organized by the SERF program. It's called the Renewable Climate and Energy Summit. This is where we try to connect these financial actors. I will share a bit about it, more about it later. In our program, we chose to focus on floating solar and offshore wind. These are technologies where both Indonesia and the Netherlands, it's interesting for Indonesia, but also the Netherlands has something to offer. It's of course logic for us to collaborate on topics that we actually feel that we are knowledgeable in. At the same time, we address the wider enabling environment for the energy transition. So floating solar and offshore wind cannot be installed without improvements in the grid connection. A green hydrogen technology and market has to be developed, and also the coal phase-out measures need to be taken for the renewable energy sector to flourish. So we also look at these aspects of the transition. And a very important aspect is that we aim to facilitate just transitions. So just transition leaves no one behind. And specific aspects that we are currently looking at in this regard is, for example, the sustainability of the minerals for renewable energy resources. So a lot of mining is necessary for all the minerals to make solar panels and windmills, etc., and batteries. Yeah, it's important that these mines have an impact on environment and on communities, and that we are aware of this and try to limit this as much as possible, and look at the just aspects there. And also, for example, the access to energy for remote communities. So we want, of course, the energy transition to be a transition that benefits all of us, also people currently not connected to the grid, or people even disadvantaged by the grid, for example, via high prices or other diversities in the energy system. So we do this via, it can be many forms what we do. So we can provide technical assistance, we do knowledge sharing, we try to build partnerships and facilitate roundtables. So it's facilitating the discussion and also helping with knowledge, but also collaborating, many topics. So to the next slide, please. So this is a bit more about the event that's currently ongoing. So this is actually a really big event. It takes place the whole week in Jakarta, 5-day program. There are more than 100 Indonesian and Dutch stakeholders together from different sectors. So the government at high levels present, acknowledged finance and investors, institutions are there, from the private sector, but of public investors. The knowledge sectors there, so universities and knowledge institutions, and a lot of companies, so business and industry is also present. So that's quite special that all these sectors come together in one event. And the first day it's focused on the national plans and this Just Energy Transition Partnership. So what's the setting today in Indonesia? The second day is an investors forum. So this is where we really try to link foreign investors to opportunities in Indonesia and address bottlenecks for investments to be made. At the third day is a day focused on knowledge exchange. So how can the research sector help to accelerate the climate and energy transition? And the fourth day is a day focusing on business. So how can we enhance the trade in renewables between Indonesia and the Netherlands? And on the fifth day, there's a site visits to the Jababeka industrial estate. So next slide, please. Then a bit wider on SERF. So this panel discussion addresses the climate neutral cities. So as a SERF program, we looked into which niches the Netherlands has added value. And I've looked into this, which are or could be relevant for climate neutral cities. And this is, for example, e-mobility. We could collaborate on waste to energy, on circular economy, on aquifer thermal energy storage, innovations in the built environment, think about construction without emissions, digitalisation, and of course, climate adaptation. And to give you an example, in the next slide, I'm also involved as an advisor for Japan. And in Japan, we focus on aquifer thermal energy storage with the SERF program. So for those of you who are not familiar with this, this is a technology which stores the excess heat in the summer in the subsurface and uses this heat in winter for heating of the house. And at the same time, it stores the cold air in the winter in the subsurface, which is used in the summer for air conditioning. So it's a seasonal heat exchange, and you use the subsurface, which keeps the temperature steady, as storage. And this energy is stored in the form of hot or cold, warmer or colder water in hydrological layers in the underground. So the Netherlands is worldwide a front runner in this technology. And so this is really very widely applied in the Netherlands. And in Japan, there is little experience, but there's a very large potential to use this technology, especially for cooling, so to replace air conditionings. In Japan, a few projects are in demonstration phase, and with the SERF program, we try to stimulate this technology because we feel that this can significantly help Japan to reach to drop the CO2 emissions for specifically for air conditioning. So what we do is we work, for example, on the potential map together with Osaka City, and then we promote this potential at city level, but also at national government level and in other cities. And we collaborate, we share, we organize exchange between our government and the Japanese government on how to change regulations so it's easier to implement such systems and what risks to take into account and how to manage these risks. So we basically share experiences. And so this is an example. And then to the next slide, please. Then Rizal asked me to share a bit more about what I mean with a just transition, specifically in the context of cities. So a just transition leaves no one behind. It is mostly known as that when you move away from fossil fuels and you close coal-fired power plants, a lot of people lose their jobs and their income. They are dependent on these coal-fired power plants. And in this transition, we should make sure that people get decent jobs in return, and that they also benefit from the transition and are not left behind. At the same time, also, I think it's not only about people, it's also about the environment. So when we make this transition, we should also take into account what our renewable energy projects make for an impact on the environment. And do we not leave the environment behind? Like, is it not getting worse from this new industrial activities? In cities can actually play a very important role in making this transition a just transition, because the actual change takes place at a local level. I looked a bit into this, and there's a very interesting article from C40 platform, and they list very concrete recommendations what you as a city can do, which I would like to share here as well. So a city can, for example, ensure that the most impacted people, so the workers and the communities, have an equal voice in decision-making processes. So if you have a new project, make sure they are represented in the design and planning phase. Also, as a city, you can assess and respond to macroeconomic changes that have disruptive impacts on workers and communities. So you see these big developments of, for example, a coal plant being shut down, and you know that you have a big community in your city depending on it. So you can take an active role in this. You can implement climate action that enhances the social equity. So make sure that people also earn money, that everybody earns from this project and not just the big developers. And you can maximize job creation, for example, through your municipal procurement. You can educate people in your city and invest in this to make sure that people in your city can take an active role in the new job market. Also, as a city, you should realize that I think that cities are a large energy user. So you are a large part of the energy demand. So if you as a city decide that you change your energy consumption from non-renewable to renewable, there is immediately a big rise in the demand for renewable energy because you are a big client. And as a client in the market, you can influence the transition in your country. So you can really take the lead and to make sure that you take your whole community along. So that is my pitch. I hope it was not too long. And happy to hear the comments.
Yes. Well, thank you, Ivona. I'm glad that you showed us the horizon and the direction where we ought to go. So yes, there is hope. Thanks for that. Now I'd like to invite Jacqueline Famale and Pak Bugar onto the stage to take a short panel discussion.
Hello.
Let's start with you, Jacqueline. In your
Hi.
role, I know that you often work with ecosystems of stakeholders that are needed to really realize a vision. Can we have the next slide, please? Yes. And the next slide. Yes, this is the slide that I received from you. So could you share your vision with us?
Sure. Thank you, by the way, Yvonne. I found really interesting what you were talking about, in fact, is the different ecosystems. And at the Hague University of Applied Science, we think that we serve as a sort of flywheel for an inclusive city and region. And by striving to be as representative as possible for our environment, and by promoting internationalization, global citizenship, sustainability, and inclusion, at our university, we can enrich education and research. And based on this desire to create more connection and cohesion between the various service departments, faculties, and research centers, it was decided to shape the coordination, if you will, of our activities from a central location that we call the hub. And in this drawing, you can see we call it the Global Strategy and Community Hub, where we bring together our education and research to accelerate and connect change within the university, but also connected, if you will, to co-create outside the university in The Hague, but also in the region, and where possible, we scale that up internationally. And we do that to further guide our students in the development of as conscious and learning global citizens. And you were talking about the most impacted populations. For us, as a university, we have a very strong inclusion policy. And what we try and do is bring together education and research and our operations to ensure that our students experience that, because what they deal with in the future in their professions is complex, if you will, wicked problems. And they need, as professionals, to be critically relate to the consequences of their work on the people and natural environment, whether that be local, national, or international. And so what we try and do through the hub is through curriculum. So trying, for instance, we have a very strong sustainability policy, is by linking education and research. We're trying to very much get sustainable learning outcomes in our curriculums and stimulate projects internally between education and research, but also externally with sustainable projects in the city of The Hague. And I think two good examples of that were mentioned earlier by Sylvia, and also work that Rizel has done on sustainable cities in the region of The Hague. But again, we scale that up to what can we do in other countries like Indonesia. So the hub is really trying to bring together what looks like very diverse strategic topics, but we see them interlinked. We have a very small team, but that team is working closely with each of our programs and our research departments to try and further our strategy as a university. And maybe one concrete example this week is Sustainability Week. And my colleagues and I have worked with, again, different programs who are implementing the SDGs within their curriculum. And we have several workshops this week, one of which is called The Future of Energy. And we ask students and staff how they can play a role in combating climate change. And so Thursday, we have a discussion and a debate, if you will, with two very diverse speakers. One is a climate activist and member of Extinction Rebellion, and the other is a member of the World Energy Council who spent 40 years working for Shell. And both share, of course, common goal of a sustainable future, but their paths and the pace in which they advocate to get there vary very differently. So I think what I'd like to say is with the hub, we're trying to stimulate our students to not just become professionals, but also better human beings in addressing these issues that, of course, have long-term impact.
Yes, thank you very much, Jacqueline, for introducing the concept of co-creation and, of course, to emphasize the attention to our younger generation who will drive this transition, right? So who will achieve this long-term vision. Next slide, please. Pak Bugar,
Yeah.
I actually want to ask your view about the role of design professionals, but I think this is also the moment where we can move forward with your pitch. So the floor is yours.
Thank you for the space, Proposal. Interesting presentation, Yvonne. I think Indonesia left several steps behind about this. Next, please. Maybe allow me to discuss about the Indonesian perspective. Yeah, we are archipelago. We have about 16,000 islands. And next, please. And most of them stay in Java. Java is very crowded. Next, please. But we have a new hope about the new capital. We hope it will be a new precedent of good life and sustainable cities. Next, please. But as we learn from the COVID, some key issues, I think, for urban spaces and buildings, but I will underline the post-pandemic safety and healthy standard and disaster mitigation management, because as you know, Indonesia called as supermarket of catastrophic, maybe flood, tsunamis, earthquake, and so on. Next, please. As we know that Indonesia have a green building codes, but in the perspective of the association, we try to make a awareness campaign first about the collaboration and partnership between researcher, global institution, and so on and so on, and certainly the policy and governance to not only on the governmental building, but also the society and the public building. Next, please. Also, we try to campaign to community engagement, how to produce energy, how to resilience and adaptation. Next, please. Also, the green infrastructure, how to use the ground cover and road, maybe use the green. Yeah. Also, the sustainable transport. As you know, after COVID, some of us choose to work from home, and I think it will be change our perspective about the mobility for works. Yeah. Next. Also, how to campaign about the energy efficient building to maximize the sunshine, the crosswind, and also the waste water management. Next, please. Also the water conservation, and urban planning. Next, please. And also, we promote the codes, although we have the green building codes, but not totally implemented in the whole public. We try to campaign to our member of architect how to design a resilient building design and how to implement it, the water management system, just like rainwater harvesting and so on. Next, please. Also, urban heat island mitigation, how to make the wind will flow to the city. Also, the sustainable energy solution to implement the solar panel and so on. Next, please. Also, we promote codes for climate responsive building codes and regulation. Now, the Ministry of Public Works on the way to make a book of codes of the smart building. Maybe one of them to implement the kinetic architecture to produce an energy efficiency. Next, please. Also, community engagement and awareness, as for example, urban farming, urban agriculture, and so on. Next, please. Next, please. In Indonesia, the major problem now is tuberculosis. As you know, before COVID, 14 men dies per hour, and maybe after COVID will be a rise. And we campaign safe house for the tuberculosis and the in the urban settlement. How to build housing with cheap budget, but still use the principle of natural sunlight and natural wind, wind cross. Next, please. And also, this is the concept, but we have implemented it in several rural area in West Java. Maybe about 100 houses will build, has been built. Next, please. Also, this is the prototype. Next, please. That's all. And maybe for the last, I would like to talk to we all that we have connected with NGO communities and also the university. So I think we can do some cooperation for research, and we can connect it with the Ministry of Public Works for long-term cooperation. Thank you. Maybe that's all, Professor Rizal.
Yes, thank you very much, Pak Bugar. You've shown us a lot of very interesting, very practical examples of design solutions. So I think we will have a very interesting short discussion afterwards. May I invite Sylvia and Ajay back onto the stage, please? Can I have the next slide, please? Yes, Sylvia, earlier this afternoon, you showed some design examples for healthy, sustainable buildings and cities, and you've seen a lot more. So, did you see a connection? What is your view on this?
Yes, for sure. It's really impressive, all the things you're doing. Congratulations to start with. And yeah, I think you can't do more than what you're doing in terms of involving all the stakeholders and the communities and having a say in how these buildings are designed and making them fit for their own purposes. And I mean, yeah, for me, the tuberculosis and the need for quarantine was something new. I didn't realize that, this is such a big health issue and that therefore our buildings need to be adapted. And yeah, so I think that that's really eye-opening. I mean, I think for me, maybe I think the sort of the private sector, the developers and who actually own the land and the buildings, right? Those are the ones that we need to convince to make the buildings more sustainable and to invest a significant amount of money and also to green their spaces. I mean, a lot of the spaces here, the municipality is not actually the owner of the space, right? So how can you convince it's maybe it's more expensive to have trees in front of your office building or your apartment building than simply the tiles, but because you need to water the trees, you need to. But there are also interesting aspects of or interesting experience have been taking place where people have adopted, trees and have communities have been involved in taking care of their neighborhoods and these spaces, the green spaces, so that there's a lot of innovation I think going on, and you've just opened the tip of the iceberg. I mean, so thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sylvia. You mentioned that municipality is the owner of the urban spaces. So you opened the door to my question to Aji. Aji, from your perspective, what do you think? What are the urban planning policies that are needed to accommodate the implementation of these solutions?
Yeah, frankly speaking, I'm so happy actually that uh, climate changes issue. We are all of us, many stakeholders concerned about the climate change issue, from the architect, from Pak Bugar, and also from the researchers like Sylvia and you, Rizal, and also it's also my part as government, a local government official, also to be concerned about that. Uh, in terms of the designing and making the spaces and the buildings in the cities like Jakarta, for example, we are as a government, we are enact the regulation since, if I'm not mistaken, since 2012, we are enact the regulation of green building. So Jakarta also has a green building regulation by the governor decree in 2012, and also we have uh, climate adaptation roadmap by 2030, and also that aims to promote climate adaptation throughout the Jakarta area, like that. And then, as Sylvia mentioned, that the municipality is the owner of the areas, right? Like that. And then we are now building many green open spaces in the city for the third space for the people to enjoy the environment friendly the spaces, and also to gathering together over there. And also uh, we have another implementation of net zero carbon in our buildings, such as like in the when we are building the school. Right now we have four school that implement the net zero carbon, including that using the solar panel and also rainwater harvesting system inside, and also eco-friendly building material selection, and also the design that can make the natural air circulation within the buildings, like Pak Bugar also mentioned about that. I think the cooperation between all the stakeholder is really needed to tackle the issue of the climate changes. I think
Those are
that's
very positive developments. So I'm really glad to hear this in our discussion, and I trust that we will follow up on this. And with that, let's move to the final topic for our discussion this afternoon. Next slide, please. So Yvonne mentioned that as we speak, there is an ongoing climate and energy summit between the Netherlands and Indonesia in Jakarta. So I'm actually switching back and forth from the RVO summit and the NWO winter conference. And this morning at the Energy and Climate Summit, I presented a new initiative from the NL Knowledge House Indonesia about the Living Labs, which I will share shortly with you. But there is already much experience of collaboration between Indonesia and the Netherlands on research. One of those is a very interesting project led by Kay on the new capital city of Indonesia. So those are the two topics that we will handle in the next, let's say, 8 minutes or so. Next slide, please. Starting with the Living Lab, uh, I will just very briefly mention as a living lab is a known method for applied research involving not only researchers, but also local government, companies, and citizens at the same time. And together, new ideas are developed, tested, and validated in a real environment. Some of my colleagues have a lot of experience in setting up and managing living labs, and they even wrote a book, published a book on practical guides for living labs. The power of living labs is really in the immediate impact of new ideas. Next slide. And this morning, the NL Indonesia Knowledge House, which is actually a platform for collaboration between knowledge institutions from the two countries, have launched a new initiative which is called Living Lab for Just Energy Transition. The aim is to set up living labs at several neighborhoods, campus areas, or commercial districts in Indonesia. And in these areas, the use of fossil fuel will be reduced and replaced with renewable energy sources and circular materials. And as such, we will try to realize zero emission building and mobility. In each of these living labs, educational institutions and companies should work together to develop and implement the plan. And this is paving the way for the transition towards renewable energy. Students from Indonesia and from the Netherlands will be involved to perform research and to monitor the progress and to validate the results. And we will also facilitate study visits and exchange of students between the two countries. So this is for you. If you're interested, and I'm sure you're interested, please look on our website and submit your expression of interest as soon as possible. You can visit the website and then find a link to submit an online form. So I'm waiting for your ideas. And now we are going to listen to Kay on your experience, Kay, from an ongoing project which has been in place for 2 years or so, right? Please take us through your project.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Oh yeah, next. Yeah, so I'm taking you to a very different topic, but the topic is about how together with Indonesian colleagues. So I'm leading the Dutch part of the consortium of a research project that is called Following Frontiers of the Forest City towards sustainable inclusive urbanization in Kalimantan, in the context of capital city relocation from Jakarta to eastern part of Kalimantan. So the other part of our collaboration or consortium is led by Professor Rejanta of the Gadjah Mada University. And here I would like to focus on our collaboration. So for the really the content of the project, please visit our website, Following Frontiers of the Forest City at Utrecht University. We have this detailed descriptions of all the works we do. Next slide, please. So the Utrecht University and the Gadjah Mada University actually have been having a long collaboration history, especially through our geography department. So I am based in the human geography department, and the Gajah Mada University's of faculties of geography and also forestry had long-standing collaboration on the themes of sustainable urbanization and also frontier governance among different ecosystems, let's say. So we had already some master student exchange, PhD supervisions, and we do have annual international conference on land governance, and we've been collaborating on that. Now, as Rizal mentioned, in 2020, we started the concrete Mariam Fund research project on sustainable urbanization in Indonesia, and to especially try to understand the impact of this new capital city built in East Kalimantan, especially in the sort of in relation to the water, river, watershed, coast, mangrove. That's the ecological part, and also society, so different groups of people, how that affects, for example, indigenous communities, trans-migrant communities, communities of workers from Sulawesi. So we know that it's a very diverse area, and what will happen if the capital comes there. Next slide, please. So we think it's very important. It's a little bit going back to the first discussion that we are collaborating to co-create knowledge. So Indonesian side manages different work packages, and the Netherlands have different work packages, and we have multiple partners from the government, from the Dutch universities, private sector, and also the local universities on Kalimantan collaborating with the Gajah Mada University. Next, please. So the most important thing that we really want to highlight here is that we want to keep on following the impacts, because as you know, the capital city is just beginning to be built now, and it will be inaugurated next year in August, your Independence Day. So we will, and then after it's built, of course, there will other infrastructure development will continue, and we have to have a sort of mechanism, a research infrastructure to follow the project. So we have established the so-called Nusantara Research Center at the East Kalimantan provincial government in order to follow different impacts of social and ecological impacts, so that we can keep on working together with the government officials who want to address those impacts, especially when they affect local populations negatively. So I will finish here because I see lots of how do you say information about we should wrap up. So I will maybe give the floor back to Rizzo. Rizzo, somehow I don't hear you.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I'm unmuted now. Thank you very much, Kay. It's very exciting projects, and probably the largest urban projects ongoing in Indonesia at this time.
Yes.
So we are very curious about the results and the outcomes of your investigation on ecology, but also sociological aspects of this new capital. Well, looking at the time, I think it's time to wrap up. We have been discussing very important topics with an excellent panel. Angela, could you please everyone on the stage, please? We don't need a slide for that, so just all the panelists on the stage. We'll skip the, yes, thank you very much. So the bottom line is we are in the middle of climate change, and we are striving for sustainability, and we have to make a positive change. Only together we can make a change with a real impact. So changing ourselves first, collaborating with each other, and changing the world. Actually, this is the slogan of my university. It's often called Let's Change, you, us, and the world. I want to conclude our session by thanking all panelists for sharing very valuable knowledge with us today. And on behalf of all panelists, I want to thank NWO, Nuffic and RVO, and others for organizing this winner conference and the summit this week. I noticed that my colleague Jerka put a link in the chat for those who are interested in joining the Living Lab. So there is a link where you can fill in the form for expression of interest. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank everyone in the audience, in the online audience, for your attention and for staying with us in the last hour. If you have further questions or comments, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much and have a nice day, everyone. Bye for
Thank
now.
you.